Okay, so first of all, there's good news and bad news. The good news is I'm the penultimate or one speaker before the last. The bad news is I left my watch at home. My apologies. I also, by the way, I suffer from ADD, which is why I wander around a stage. I also just wanted to say that I didn't realise that this was the warm-up act, so I hope my jokes won't fall flat, given everything that we just heard before and the wonderful presentation of all of our speakers. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can because we're already out of time. If you want to know about the Israel project, go to our website. It's easy enough to find. I'm just going to tell you that we are an organisation that for the last 10 years has been working with journalists, trying to educate them on Israel and Israel's role in the Middle East and its relationship with our neighbours. I want in the next few moments to first of all talk to you about what it is that we do, not because I'm trying to fundraise for the organisation, but more because what we do is the title of this session. For the last 10 years, we have been trying to find ways of dealing with delegitimization and to put forward a different form of public advocacy. Now, the reason many of you might not have heard of us, even though you're all keen on this particular area of work, is because we don't work with the public. We work behind the scenes. It might be, for example, that the New York Times or CNN or The Guardian or wherever it is will write something that is positive about Israel, will write something that is accurate, which I'm not saying they don't do, but that represents both sides. There's a very strong chance that the Israeli side will have been educated by my organisation, and that is what you're seeing in print. So again, we work very much behind the scenes. We have 3 teams working out of Israel. The first is our communications team, whose day-by-day job is to work with the journalists. We do that in a variety of ways. Centre, helicopter. Every senior journalist that comes into this country has taken our helicopter ride, whether they're part of the 470 permanently based journalists here in Israel or whether they're visiting here. We take them up from Herzliya. We fly them across in 2.5 minutes in our fastest helicopter, 2.5 minutes to the Green Line. And every single journalist who comes off the helicopter says, I didn't realise. Then we fly them down to Jerusalem along the Green Line and we show them that of the 726 kilometres of the security fence, 95% is fence. It's not a wall. When you're writing in your newspapers and your opinion pieces that you send out, don't use the words that you don't agree with. Don't use the word intifada for the second intifada. It wasn't an intifada. An intifada is a public uprising. In the 1980s, the first intifada was. The second was terror, suicide bombings. And if you're talking about the fence, then explain to the people that the fence stopped the suicide bombings. There was one attack in the last 2 years. I want to tell you a little bit about Israel Uncensored. And despite what Dr. Kedar said, there is work being done in the Arab world. Amongst other organizations, we're doing it. And now I'll give you some statistics. Facebook, for the younger members and maybe the older members who are computer literate, is these days perhaps the single most important way of communicating in the world. Most of our work is done not with the public, as I said, but with journalists. However, we decided for the Arab world something different had to be done. Whilst it's true that the major newspapers based in London, in the Arabic world, Saudi-owned newspapers, will on occasion use our press releases word for word and not change them, we're not always guaranteed of the same successes in other parts of the world. Sometimes a local Saudi newspaper or a Kuwaiti newspaper won't believe us. So what we did was set up something in Arabic on Facebook called Israel Uncensored. It explains everything about Israel other than the conflict, the type of stuff that's always censored in the Arab world. Music, art, history, freedom of worship that we saw before from Dallas. And we are now the third most popular Facebook page in Arabic in the world. The figures are there. These are not figures that I'm making up. The 43 million. We've only been going just a year. It was April last year. In 1 year, we've been read 43 million times. We have, I'm not sure what the latest figure is, but somewhere around 50,000 likes. That means 40 or 50,000 people, different people from across the Arab world, have come onto this page, have seen the word Israel, have read something about Kiryat Shmona winning the national football title, or Ofra Hazar, or whatever it is. And they've clicked a button that says, I like this. We can make change. The area that I'm responsible for is content and training. Content is all of the things, I'm not going to bore you with, the typical type of stuff that we send out around the world. Originally, when I arrived in the organization, it was all words. You can see at the bottom in the middle, all sorts of reports that we hand out. But journalists and diplomats and other people, they're lazy. I'm not diplomats, that's not fair. Journalists. I'm a journalist for 20 years. No, there is actually a huge difference. Diplomats want to see depth. Diplomats want to read the reports, because don't forget, what we feed them, they file back to their host countries, to their home countries. So it's incredibly important to give them depth. But as far as the journalists are concerned, they want something that they can turn around quickly, because they're not just writing anymore. They're filing to the internet. Voice of America, the guy based here from Voice of America, 2 years from pension, is carrying a camera on his shoulder. Voice of America is a radio station. He's got a camera, he's writing for the internet, he's writing materials, he's also filming himself. They don't have time anymore, so we have to help them get over that problem. So what we did, for example, the little boy in the middle, his father was killed in the parking lot in the car park of Sapir College when a rocket landed there just outside Sderot. We went down, we met his mother, we met him, we got permission, we took a whole series of photographs with him, and we distributed them. Now onto the training. I'm not going to have time for the polling, I'm guessing, am I? I need to wrap up. Onto the training side of things. There is an issue, generally, which you're all familiar with, which is why you're all here today, that over the years, Israeli spokespeople haven't always known what to say. What we've done behind the scenes is to try to help some of the people behind closed doors to understand what it is that they need to say. Who is your target audience? If you're going on television, is it a live broadcast or is it a pre-recorded broadcast? Because you have different opportunities depending on the program. Again, is this CNN, MSNBC, if you're over on the political left, or is it something off on the right where you're on safer ground like Fox? We try to give the spokespeople for this country the tools, but not just the spokespeople and the academics and the serving officers in the military and those who used to be there. But now we've started something new. We're going, and you can see from the map on the left-hand side, these are all of the areas. I won't talk about the northern border where we're also very active. This is the area around Gaza. You can see from the concentric circles, those are the areas that are being hit by the rockets where the million people are. We are going yeshuv by yeshuv, community by community, and we are helping those people to know how to deal with the media. So that when the next rocket, heaven forbid, lands in Rishon LeZion, and you might say, one hasn't landed yet, it will, because that's the next on the map, that there will be somebody in Rishon, or several somebodies, who speak Spanish and French and Portuguese and all the other crucial languages around the world, that they will know how to deal with the media. And that's the type of change that we're invoking. Have I got 2 minutes or not?
You get 1 minute and you get a red card.
Fine. No, I get a yellow after 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to do this is the quickest guide to polling. We are the only organisation in this world, in our world, that does serious polling. I won't go into the details. If you want to know, I'll talk to you about it later. This is polling in America. Okay, very simply, the top line is pro-Israel. The bottom line is pro-Palestinian. We're at 57. They're at 6. Let's look at the next country. Oh, the reasons. In America, Israel is our most important ally in the Middle East, remains the most important reason that we are supported in the United States. The reasons that people don't like us: Israel continues to build houses on Palestinian land, despite requests from the US and Europe to stop. It's what we know. Germany. Germany is interesting. The idea of the Holocaust bringing us together, as you can imagine, and if you followed the news this morning in Hebrew, you'd know that at least one Holocaust survivor in this country is dying every hour. The same is happening in Germany. The people who carried out the Holocaust, or their children, their distance, that time is moving away. And so that guaranteed knee-jerk reaction support for Israel is not what it used to be. In France, look at the support for the Palestinians. This is the latest poll. 34% in favor of the Palestinians, Israel 15%. All these figures I'm showing you are either from the last few weeks or the last few months. In India, there's strong support for Israel, but at the end of the day, just like China, they're much more pragmatic. What works for me? Now, what does work, if any of you have business with China or have dealings in Hasbara with China, is to talk about everything other than the conflict. If you talk to them about what China can gain, you're going to win friends. But don't try to talk to someone in China about policy, because you ain't going to make a difference. We test every single thing that we write, that we say, before we write it or before we say it. So if you need help on that front, please feel free. Thank you.